The coffee was still hot when my phone rang. I should have known then. Should have felt it in my bones the way I used to feel when a patient was coding before the monitors even started beeping. 40 years in ICU, nursing teaches you to read the invisible, the slight change in breathing, the micro-expression that says, "I'm lying about the pain meds." But that morning I was too caught up in my own peace to notice the warning signs. The mist hadn't burned off yet. It hung over the valley like a soft gray blanket, the kind you'd pull up to a patient's chin when they finally fell asleep after 3 days of fighting. I'd been in North Carolina for 47 days. Yes, I counted them like a recovery timeline, each one marking another step away from the antiseptic smell of hospitals and the hollow ache of sleeping alone in a bed that used to hold two. My porch faced east. James always said I was a sunrise person, though he was more of a stumble to the coffee maker and grunt kind of guy. God, I missed that grunt. 5 years since the cancer took him, and some mornings I still brewed enough coffee for 2 out of habit. The French press was James's last gift to me. He bought it 3 weeks before his diagnosis, said we'd use it at our retirement place. "Somewhere with a porch, Mags," he'd said, "where you can watch birds and do all that nature crap you're always talking about." This place had that porch. It had the birds. I'd spotted an eastern bluebird yesterday, exact same color as the scrubs I wore for 20 years. It had 40 acres of woods and wildflowers, and silence so thick you could spread it like butter. It cost me $320,000 from our savings, but it was worth every penny. The phone screen lit up. Sarah, daughter. I smiled, expecting her usual morning routine. She'd call before school started, update me on the kids, complain about how Lucas had refused to wear anything but his Spider-Man costume to bed again. "Hey, honey, let me guess. Lucas tried to bring his action figures to preschool?" "Mom," her voice cracked on that single syllable. Not the good crack, not tears of laughter or joy. The bad kind. The kind I'd heard from families in the ICU waiting room when I had to tell them we'd done everything we could. I set down my coffee. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong exactly. I need to talk to you about something important. In nursing, we have a phrase, circling the drain. It means a patient who's dancing around the real problem, using vague language because they're scared to name it. Sarah was circling. "Honey, you sound like you're about to tell me you're pregnant with twins." I kept my voice light, giving her an out, a way to laugh it off if she wanted. She didn't laugh. "It's about Brandon's parents." Long pause. "They lost their house." I picked up my coffee again, took a slow sip, bought myself 3 seconds to think. Robert and Patricia Miller had lived in the same 3-bedroom ranch in Dayton, Ohio for 32 years. I'd been to that house exactly 4 times, once for the wedding, twice for Christmases, once for Robert's retirement party. "Lost how?" I asked. "Like fire? Flood?" "Foreclosure." Sarah's voice got smaller. "They couldn't make the payments. The bank took it last month." Last month? They'd been homeless for 30 days, and this was the first I was hearing about it? Red flag number 1. "That's awful," I said, meaning it. I didn't particularly like Robert and Patricia. Robert had a tendency to make borderline racist comments he thought were just jokes, and Patricia had opinions about my weight she didn't bother whispering. But losing your home at 65 is brutal. "Are they okay? Where are they staying?" "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." Sarah's words came faster now, like she'd rehearsed this part. "Brandon and I were thinking, you have that big place now, 4 bedrooms, and you're out there all alone. Maybe his parents could stay with you for a while? Just temporarily. 6 months, maybe a year at most, just until they get back on their feet." There it was, the ask. But something wasn't sitting right. Sarah was my daughter. I'd know her voice anywhere. This wasn't her idea. This was a script someone had fed her. "You and Brandon were thinking," I repeated slowly. "Or Brandon was thinking and you're the one calling me?" Silence. Bingo. "Mom, please don't." "I'm not mad, sweetheart. I just want to understand the situation." I stood up, started pacing. Old habit from the hospital. I thought better on my feet. "How long have you known about this?" "Brandon told me 3 days ago." 3 days ago. And they'd waited until now to call, which meant Brandon had spent those 3 days coaching Sarah on how to approach me. Red flag number 2. And what exactly is the plan here? His parents move into my house, they look for jobs, they save up, they move out in 6 months? Well, Sarah hesitated. "Dad can't really work. He's got that bad back and… Sarah, your father-in-law is 65. He retired from the GM plant with a full pension. That doesn't just disappear. I don't know all the details. She was defensive now. Brandon handles his parents' stuff. I just know they need help, and we can't take them in because our house is too small. And I thought you'd want to help. Family helps family, right? Family helps family. Someone had fed her that line. That was Brandon speak all the way. He was big on the family duty guilt trip. He'd used it on Sarah when his brother needed a co-signer for a car loan. Used it again when his cousin needed a place to crash for 2 weeks that turned into 4 months. Of course I want to help, I said. And I meant it. But I need to understand what I'm helping with. Can I talk to Brandon and his parents? Face to face? You want them to drive out there? Mom, that's like 9 hours. Then I'll come to you. Tomorrow. I can be there by evening. No! Too fast. Too panicked. I mean, that's not necessary. I'll talk to Brandon. Maybe we can do a video call or something? Red flag number 3. Sarah. I used my ICU voice. Calm, firm, the voice that got confused families to focus during a crisis. I love you. You know that. And I'm happy to help however I can. But I'm 68 years old and I just bought a house in the middle of nowhere. Before I invite anyone to live with me, I need to look them in the eye and have a real conversation. That's not unreasonable. She was quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her biting her thumbnail the way she did when she was anxious. Okay, she finally said. I'll tell Brandon. But Mom, please keep an open mind. His parents are good people. They're just going through a rough patch. I will, honey. I promise. We said our goodbyes. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her more. Our old game from when she was little. I hung up and stood on the porch for a long time, watching the mist lift off the valley. Then I went inside, pulled out the leather journal I'd used for patient notes back in my ICU days, and opened to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote in neat capital letters, "People think nurses just follow doctors' orders and hand out pills. They don't understand that half of nursing is detective work, figuring out what the patient isn't telling you. The guy who swears he's taking his blood pressure meds but his BP is through the roof. You check his pharmacy records. The woman who claims she never drinks but shows up with liver enzymes that look like a frat house on spring break. You learn to spot the miniature vodka bottles hidden in her purse. You don't just trust what people tell you. You verify. Always verify. I opened my laptop, a MacBook Pro that Sarah insisted I needed, though I'd argued my old Dell worked just fine. She was right, of course. The thing booted up in seconds. First stop? Google. I typed in Robert Miller, 428 Maple Street, Dayton, Ohio, their old address that I'd sent Christmas cards to for 7 years. The first result made my stomach drop. Zillow, 428 Maple Street, bank foreclosure, listed $280,000. Status, sold foreclosure. Date, November 15th, 3 months ago. Not last month, like Sarah had said. Strike 1 for Brandon's version of events. I clicked through the listing photos. The house looked rough, overgrown lawn, peeling paint on the shutters, one window covered with cardboard. These weren't "we just fell on hard times" aesthetics. This was months, maybe years of neglect. Next, I navigated to the county clerk's website. Public records are a beautiful thing. Most people don't realize how much information is just sitting there, free for the taking if you know where to look. I found the property records for 428 Maple Street and downloaded the PDF. Took me 3 tries because I kept clicking the wrong button. James used to handle all this computer stuff. But I got there. The records showed a home equity line of credit taken out 18 months ago. Principal amount, $150,000. Lender, First National Bank. Borrowers, Robert Miller, and… I squinted at the screen, adjusted my reading glasses. Sarah Miller, my daughter's name. Right there in black and white. Co-signer on a $150,000 loan. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. Sarah hadn't just found out 3 days ago. She'd been tied to this mess for 1.5 years. Either she knew and lied to me, or Brandon had forged her signature. Neither option was good. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The exposed wooden beams James and I had admired when we first saw this place. He'd said they reminded him of his grandfather's barn. Said they made the house feel honest. I didn't feel very honest right now. I felt like I was watching my daughter drown, And she didn't even know she was underwater yet. Deep breath. Focus. What else could I find? I opened Facebook. Yes, I'm 68 and I understand social media, thank you very much. Sarah had insisted I make an account to see pictures of the grandkids. I barely used it, but it had its purposes. Brandon's profile was public. He wasn't smart enough to make it private. His latest post was from 3 days ago, a photo of himself at a bar, raising a glass of what looked like whiskey. Caption reading, "Sometimes you gotta take the edge off #stressed out, #need a vacation." I scrolled down. More bar photos. Lots of them. Brandon at what looked like a casino, slot machines visible in the background. Brandon with a group of guys at a blackjack table. Brandon posing in front of the Bellagio fountains in Vegas. I counted 47 photos taken in Vegas over the past 14 months. That's not occasional business trips. That's a problem. One comment under a photo from 6 months ago caught my eye. A guy named Tyler wrote, "Dude, you gotta stop before you lose the house too." Two. That word sat in my chest like a stone. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, a deer was grazing near the tree line. She looked up, ears swiveling, then went back to eating. No fear, no sense of danger. I envied her. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Brandon says they can talk this weekend. Is Sunday good?" I typed back. "Sunday works. Let's do 2 p.m. At that diner we liked. Blue Ridge Diner?" Her response came fast. "Can't they just come to your place? I'd rather meet in public. Neutral territory. Less pressure on everyone." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Okay, I'll tell them." I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. Detective Rita Alvarez. We'd worked together a lot. She'd come to the hospital when we had assault victims, suspicious injuries, cases where we needed police reports for protective services. Rita answered on the 3rd ring. "Maggie? Holy crap, is that really you? I heard you retired." "I did. Moved to the middle of nowhere and everything." "Good for you, girl. You earned it. So what's up? This better not be a can you help me bury a body situation because I'm too old for that shit." I laughed, despite myself. "Nothing that dramatic. I need a favor. You still have contacts at mortgage companies?" "Depends what you need." "Information on a HELOC, specifically whether the co-signer knew they were signing." Rita was quiet for a beat. "That's fraud territory, Mags. What are you into?" "Trying to keep my daughter from losing everything." "Ah, hell." I heard rustling, like she was grabbing a pen. "Give me the details." I told her about the loan, about Sarah's name on the documents, about the timeline not making sense. Rita listened without interrupting. Good detective habit. "I'll make some calls," she said when I finished. "Off the record, but Maggie, if this is what I think it is, you need to move fast. These things don't get better on their own." "I know. And Maggie, be careful. Family stuff gets messy. People do crazy shit when money's involved." "I know that too." We hung up. I looked at my case file journal, at the growing list of questions and red flags. In nursing school, they taught us to use the nursing process. Assess, diagnose, plan, implement, evaluate. I'd assessed the situation. The diagnosis was becoming clear. My son-in-law was either incompetent, a liar, or both. Probably both. Now I needed a plan. But first I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. And for that, I needed to set a trap. The surveillance cameras arrived on Thursday. 6 Reolink 4K cameras with solar panels. Cost me $800, but worth every penny. James would have laughed at me, buying spy equipment like I was in some kind of thriller movie. But James wasn't here, and I'd learned a long time ago that the best defense is being prepared. I installed them myself. Took 4 hours and 3 YouTube tutorials, but I got them working. 1 on each corner of the house, 1 covering the driveway, 1 pointed at the back door. The app on my iPad showed me live feeds from all 6 cameras. Crystal clear, even at night. Sunday morning, I drove to the Blue Ridge Diner for what I'd told Sarah would be the family meeting. The place was busy, church crowd getting their after-service breakfast. I ordered coffee and waited. Brandon showed up 20 minutes late, driving his Tesla. Yeah, a Tesla, while apparently his parents were homeless and broke. That right there should have told Sarah everything she needed to know. He slid into the booth across from me, all smiles and expensive cologne. "Maggie, thanks for meeting us." "Where are your parents?" Oh, they're in the car. I wanted to talk to you first. Kind of smooth things over, you know? I specifically asked to meet all three of you, Brandon. His smile flickered. Right, yeah. But I thought maybe we could chat first. Just you and me? Because I know this is a lot to ask, and I wanted to make sure you understood. Where's Sarah? She's home with the kids. Emma has a cold. Emma didn't have a cold. I'd FaceTimed with both grandkids last night, and they were fine. Lie number 1 of the day, and it wasn't even noon. Brandon, I folded my hands on the table. I'm going to be very direct with you, because that's who I am. I know about the HELOC. I know Sarah co-signed, and I know your parents lost their house 3 months ago, not last month. The smile died completely. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, anger, calculation, then back to a forced calm. Okay, he said slowly. Okay, so you did some digging. That's fair, I guess. But see, there's more to the story. I'm sure there is, which is why I want to hear it from your parents directly. Go get them from the car, please. He didn't move. Maggie, I don't think you understand how embarrassing this is for them. My dad, he's a proud man. He doesn't want to. Now, Brandon, something in my voice, the ICU voice, the voice I used when a family member was interfering with patient care, made him flinch. He slid out of the booth and walked to the parking lot. Through the diner window, I watched him lean into his car, talking animatedly, probably coaching them on what to say. 2 minutes later, Robert and Patricia Miller shuffled into the diner like prisoners heading to sentencing. Robert had aged badly since I'd seen him last. His face was gray, puffy. Patricia looked like she'd been crying recently, eyes red, makeup not quite covering it. They sat down next to Brandon. The booth suddenly felt very crowded. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I said. I'm sorry about your house. Patricia's eyes welled up immediately. It's been so hard, Margaret. So hard. We don't know what we're going to do. Can you tell me what happened? The truth, please. Robert cleared his throat. It was medical bills. I had this heart thing, needed surgery, and the insurance didn't cover. Dad had a heart attack, Brandon jumped in. Super serious. Cost like $150,000 out of pocket. I looked at Robert. Really looked at him. Looked at his hands. No tremor, no cyanosis. His color was bad, but that was more stress and poor diet than recent cardiac surgery. His breathing was normal. No visible scarring on his chest where they would have cracked his sternum for open heart. When was this surgery? I asked. Robert glanced at Brandon. About 2 years ago? Which hospital? St. Mary's in Dayton. I pulled out my phone, opened notes, started typing. And your cardiologist's name? It was... Robert was sweating now. Dr. Patterson or Peterson? I looked at Patricia. You'd remember your husband's heart surgeon's name, wouldn't you? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Brandon. I set my phone down. There was no surgery, was there? Silence. Robert, I've been an ICU nurse for 40 years. I've seen more heart surgeries than I can count. You don't have the surgical scars. You don't have the medication list. And you can't even name your doctor. I kept my voice gentle but firm. So I'll ask again. What happened to the money? Patricia started crying for real now. Big, gulping sobs. Robert put his head in his hands. Brandon's jaw tightened. You know what? This was a mistake. We don't need your help. Come on, we're leaving. Sit down, I said. Excuse me? I said sit down, Brandon, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth, all of it. Or I'm going to call Sarah right now and tell her everything I've found, including the fact that you lied to her about why you needed her to co-sign that loan. His face went pale. You don't know. I know you've been to Vegas 47 times in the past year. I know you gamble. I know your parents' house went into foreclosure, and I'm guessing the money from that HELOC went straight into paying off your debts. I paused. Am I close? Robert made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. He promised it was an investment, said we'd triple our money in 6 months. Cryptocurrency, he said. Dad, shut up. It's all gone. Robert's voice cracked. Every penny. And now we've got nothing. No house, no savings, nothing. Patricia was still crying. Brandon looked like he wanted to climb under the table. I sat back, processing. This was worse than I'd thought. This wasn't just Brandon being reckless. He'd conned his own parents, Used his father-in-law's signature to steal from his wife. Okay, I said quietly. Here's what we're going to do. You're not staying at my house. But I am going to help you. Because despite everything, you're Sarah's family. I looked at Robert and Patricia. There's a decent motel about 5 miles from my place. Pine Ridge Motor Lodge. I'll pay for 1 week. That gives you 7 days to figure out your next move. Apply for jobs. Look into assistance programs. Whatever you need. That's it? Brandon's voice was sharp. 1 week in a shitty motel? Be grateful I'm offering anything, considering you've been lying to my daughter for 18 months. I pulled $300 bills out of my wallet, my emergency cash, and slid them across to Robert. That's for food. Make it last. I stood up, left money for my untouched coffee, and walked out. Brandon caught up with me in the parking lot. You can't tell Sarah about this. Watch me. Please. His voice dropped. Please, Maggie. If she finds out, she'll leave me. I'll lose my kids. I'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before you forged her signature. His eyes went wide. I didn't. Yes, you did. I'm having a handwriting expert analyze the loan documents. If that signature doesn't match Sarah's, you're looking at fraud charges. Identity theft. That's federal prison time, Brandon. He was shaking now. What do you want from me? Right now? Nothing. But you're going to stay away from my house. You're going to stop asking me for money, and you're going to leave Sarah and those kids alone while I figure out how to clean up your mess. You can't keep me from my own wife. I'm not keeping you from anyone. I'm giving you a chance to come clean before I do it for you. I unlocked my car. You've got until Friday. Tell her the truth or I will. I drove away, watching him in the rearview mirror. He stood in the parking lot for a long time, phone pressed to his ear. Probably calling Sarah. Probably spinning some new story. I drove past my house and kept going for another 3 miles until I reached a pull-off I'd scouted earlier. From here, I had a clear view of my property through binoculars. And more importantly, I had my iPad with the camera feeds. Then I settled in to wait. 2 hours later, Brandon's Tesla pulled into my driveway. I watched through the cameras as he got out, looked around, then used a key to open my front door. A key I'd never given him. He must have made a copy from Sarah's set. I watched him move through my house, opening drawers, checking closets. Looking for what? Money? Documents? My stomach turned watching this stranger, because that's what he was now. A stranger who happened to be married to my daughter. Rifle through my personal belongings. He found the wooden box in my bedroom. I'd left it there deliberately, filled with cut paper the size of cash, and a note on top that said, "Looking for something?" The camera caught his face perfectly when he read it. Pure rage, followed by fear. That's when I heard it. The sound that made everything perfect. Yipping, high-pitched, wild. The coyotes. I'd seen them 3 times since moving here. A pack of 5 that lived somewhere in the woods behind my property. They usually came around dusk, looking for easy food. I'd left the back door propped open with a wedge. And I'd left a bag of dog food on the back porch. Through the camera, I watched Brandon freeze as the yipping got closer. He ran to the back door, saw it hanging open, swore loud enough for the audio to pick up. 3 coyotes appeared on the back porch, sniffing the dog food. Brandon, city boy that he was, apparently thought coyotes were the same as wolves. He screamed, actually screamed, and ran for the front door. In his panic, he tripped over the rug in the entryway and went down hard. Not injured, just rattled, but when he scrambled back up, I could see the wet patch on his jeans. He'd literally pissed himself in fear. He made it to his Tesla and peeled out of the driveway so fast he left tire marks. I sat in my car, watching the coyotes peacefully eat their free meal, and I allowed myself one small smile. Then I opened my journal and wrote, "Prognosis confirmed. Brandon Miller is not just a liar. He's a desperate, dangerous liar. And desperate people do unpredictable things. Next step? Protect Sarah, whatever it takes." Sarah showed up at my door 2 weeks later without calling first. That alone told me everything. My daughter was a planner. She color-coded her lesson plans, scheduled playdates 3 weeks in advance, and never ever dropped by unannounced. The fact that she'd driven 9 hours from Ohio without warning meant something had broken. I was in the garden when I heard her car. I'd been planting tomatoes, therapy gardening I called it. Shoving your hands in dirt and making things grow is a hell of a lot cheaper than a therapist, and probably just as effective. "Mom?" Her voice was small. The voice of the 8-year-old who'd fallen off her bike and scraped both knees, trying not to cry because she thought crying was for babies. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans. She was standing by her car, sunglasses on even though it was overcast. Classic move. Sunglasses hide puffy eyes. "Come here, baby," I said. She broke, just completely fell apart. I held her there in my driveway while she sobbed into my shoulder, her whole body shaking. I didn't ask questions. I just held her the way I'd held her through every childhood nightmare, every teenage heartbreak, every hard moment life had thrown at her. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and wet. "Can we go inside?" "Of course, I'll make tea." We sat at my kitchen table, the one James had built from reclaimed barnwood because I'd wanted something rustic. Sarah wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "With Brandon's sister. I told them I needed to visit Grandma for a few days." She took a shaky breath. "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you not to be mad." "I'm not going to be mad, honey. You don't know what it is yet." "Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." She laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "You always say that. We'll figure it out together, like everything's fixable." "Most things are if you catch them early enough." She pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. 18 months ago, she started, voice barely above a whisper. Brandon came to me crying, like actually crying. He said his dad needed emergency heart surgery, some kind of valve thing. He showed me medical bills, talked about how insurance was only covering part of it. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. He said they needed $150,000 or his dad would die. My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "Okay." He asked me to co-sign a loan, a HELOC on his parents' house. He said it was the only way, that the banks wouldn't approve it without a second signature because Robert's credit was bad from medical debt. She was talking faster now, words tumbling out. I said yes. Of course I said yes. How could I not? It was his father's life. "And Brandon handled all the paperwork?" She nodded. "I signed where he told me to sign. I didn't even read it all. God, Mom, I'm so stupid." "You're not stupid." "I am." She slammed her mug down. Tea sloshed onto the table. "I'm 35 years old and I signed a $150,000 loan without reading the fine print. What kind of idiot does that?" The kind who was trying to save her father-in-law's life. I grabbed a dish towel, started mopping up the tea. "But Sarah, I need you to tell me something and I need you to be honest. Did Robert have that surgery?" She went very still. "What?" "The heart surgery. Did it happen?" I don't know. I mean, Brandon said it did. He was at the hospital with them for like 3 days. He showed me pictures of his dad in a hospital bed." "Did you visit?" "No. Brandon said Robert didn't want visitors. Said he was embarrassed about the whole thing." I pulled out my laptop, opened it to the search I'd done weeks ago. "Sarah, I looked into this. I checked Medicare records, hospital admissions, everything. Robert Miller had no cardiac surgery in the past 2 years. The only thing on his record is a routine checkup and 1 visit for a cold." The color drained from her face. No, that can't be right. Brandon wouldn't." "I'm sorry, baby. Maybe it was a different hospital. Maybe the records are wrong." "Honey," I covered her hand with mine. "I also found photos of Brandon in Vegas. 47 different visits over the past year. He's got a gambling problem. He goes there for work sometimes. Real estate conferences. With stacks of poker chips in his hands." She yanked her hand back. "You've been spying on him? Going through his social media like some kind of stalker?" "I've been protecting you." "By invading his privacy?" "By verifying what he told you." "Sarah, do you remember what I used to tell you about patients who claimed they were taking their medications but their labs showed otherwise?" "Trust but verify," she said quietly. It had been my motto in the ICU. Exactly. And when I verified Brandon's story, it fell apart. She stood up, paced to the window. For a long moment, she just stared out at the mountains. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder. 3 months ago, I found a credit card statement. $15,000 at some online casino. I asked him about it. He said it was identity theft, that he'd already reported it. She pressed her forehead against the glass. I believed him. Of course I believed him. He's my husband, Sarah. You know what the worst part is? She turned to face me. I think I knew. Somewhere deep down, I knew something was wrong. But I didn't want to look too close because if I looked, I'd have to deal with it. And I didn't want to be one of those women. The ones whose husbands lie to them and they're too stupid to see it. You're not? Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, went pale. It's the bank. Answer it. Put it on speaker. She did, hands shaking. Hello, is this Sarah Miller? Yes, this is she. Mrs. Miller, this is Tom Chen from First National Bank. I'm calling about the second mortgage on your property at 428 Maple Street. I'm sorry, Sarah interrupted. What second mortgage? My husband and I only have one mortgage. Static on the line, papers rustling. Ma'am, according to our records, a second mortgage was taken out on your property 6 months ago. The amount was $85,000. Sarah looked at me, eyes wide with panic. I moved next to her, close enough to hear the phone. There must be a mistake, Sarah said. I never signed any second mortgage. The signature on file is yours, Mrs. Miller. The loan was approved on March 15th. We've sent multiple payment reminders to your address. The account is now 60 days past due, which is why I'm calling. I didn't... Sarah's voice cracked. I didn't sign anything. I would have known if I'd signed a second mortgage. I understand this is concerning. I'm going to transfer you to our fraud department. Please hold. Muzak filled my kitchen. Sarah stared at the phone like it was a snake. He forged my signature, she whispered. Oh my God, he forged my signature. The fraud department kept Sarah on the phone for 45 minutes. They needed information, dates, locations, details about her relationship with Brandon. Every answer seemed to make things worse. No, she hadn't authorized the loan. No, she hadn't received any paperwork about it. Yes, Brandon had access to her personal information. Yes, she'd signed the first HELOC, but not this one. When she finally hung up, she looked 10 years older. They're opening an investigation, she said flatly. They said I need to file a police report for identity theft against my own husband. Sarah? They said if I don't file the report, I'm legally responsible for the $85,000. They can take my house, Mom, the house where my kids live, where Emma learned to ride her bike in the driveway, where Lucas planted sunflowers last spring. She started to hyperventilate. I recognized the signs immediately. I'd seen enough panic attacks in the ICU. Breathe, I said firmly. In through your nose, 4 counts. Out through your mouth, 4 counts. Come on with me. We breathed together until her color returned, until her hands stopped shaking quite so badly. I don't understand, she said. Where did the money go? $85,000. What did he do with it? I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. How? I opened my laptop again, pulled up a website I'd bookmarked. I hired a private investigator. You what? 3 weeks ago, after the incident with Brandon breaking into my house. He what? Shit, I hadn't told her that part yet. After the meeting at the diner, he came to my house. Let himself in with a key he'd copied from your set. I have it on video. Show me. I pulled up the footage on my iPad. We watched in silence as Brandon rifled through my bedroom, opened the fake cash box, then ran like hell from the coyotes. Despite everything, Sarah let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob when he tripped. He pissed himself. He did indeed. Good. She wiped her eyes. So what did the PI find? I opened the file Tom Wilson, my PI, had sent me. Brandon has a secret bank account at Bank of America. Currently holds about $7 grand. But over the past 18 months, deposits totaling $214,000 have gone through that account. Sarah's mouth opened and closed. Where did he get that much money? The HELOC your name is on. The second mortgage. Probably other sources we haven't found yet. And where did it go? I scrolled through Tom's report. Gambling sites mostly. DraftKings, BetMGM, several offshore casinos. But there's something else. I pulled up a photo. Brandon's been meeting with a woman named Jessica Reynolds 3 times a week at a bar called Lucky's. Sarah stared at the photo. A blonde woman in her 30s sitting across a booth from Brandon. Is he having an affair? I don't think so. Tom ran a background check on her. She's a hospitality consultant for a casino, but that's usually code for something else. Code for what? Loan shark operations use people like her as go-betweens. They look legitimate, work in casinos, but really they're connecting desperate gamblers with underground lenders. Sarah was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, cold even. How much does he owe these people? Tom's still working on that, but based on the pattern of withdrawals from the secret account, large amounts going out in cash, I'd guess somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000. Jesus Christ. She stood up, walked to the window again. So let me get this straight. Brandon's got a gambling addiction. He stole $150,000 from his own parents, lost their house, then forged my signature to steal another $85,000 from me. And now he owes money to loan sharks who are probably going to break his kneecaps. That's the situation, yes. And where does that leave me? Us? Emma and Lucas? This was the hard part. Sarah, if you don't distance yourself from this financially and legally, you're going to go down with him. The bank can come after your house. The loan sharks could target you. And if Brandon gets arrested for fraud, which he should, you could be implicated as an accessory if you're still married to him. So you're saying I should divorce him. I'm saying you need to protect yourself and your children. What you do about the marriage is up to you. She laughed bitterly. What marriage? There's nothing left. I don't even know who he is anymore. Maybe I never did. We turned my dining room into mission control. It took us 3 days to gather everything. Bank statements going back 3 years, credit card records, emails, text messages, photos, receipts. Sarah brought boxes of paperwork from home while Brandon was at work, claiming she was organizing files. My dining table disappeared under stacks of documents. I'd bought a large whiteboard at Staples, the kind teachers use, and we'd covered it with a timeline of Brandon's financial crimes. Red marker for loans, blue for gambling expenses, green for cash withdrawals. It looked like the evidence board in a detective show, which I guess is what we'd become. Detectives investigating the man who'd infiltrated our family. Okay, Sarah said, typing on her laptop. I've downloaded 7 years of bank statements from our joint account. Jesus, Mom, look at this. She turned the screen toward me, highlighted in yellow, dozens of transfers. Small amounts at first. $50 here, $100 there. Then larger. $500. $1,000. $2,000. I never noticed, Sarah said. I barely looked at the statements. Brandon always said he was handling the finances. I was focused on the kids, on work. He counted on that, I said. Abusers always do. They make you feel like you're not good at something, so you hand over control. He's not abusive. He never hit me. Financial abuse is still abuse, honey. She was quiet for a moment, then pointed at a specific transaction. What's this? March 28th, $3,000 to Medical Specialists Associates? I pulled up Google, searched the name. It's not a medical practice, it's a shell company. Probably a front for a loan shark operation. How do you know that? I don't for certain. But legitimate medical practices don't have generic names like that. And they don't accept $3,000 Venmo transfers. Sarah made a note in her spreadsheet. We'd been doing this for hours, cross-referencing every transaction, trying to build a complete picture of Brandon's financial activities. My phone rang. Rita Alvarez. Hey, Mags. Got some info for you. Hang on, I'm putting you on speaker. Sarah's here. Hi, Rita, Sarah said quietly. Hey, sweetheart. I'm sorry you're going through this. Rita's voice was gentler than usual. Okay, so I had a buddy at the mortgage company pull some strings. That second mortgage? The signature analysis is pretty damning. It's definitely forged. Whoever did it was trying, but they got the loops wrong on the S in Sarah, and the pressure points don't match. Can that be used in court? I asked. Absolutely. My buddy's recommending you hire an official forensic document examiner. I can give you names. It'll cost about $800, but you'll get a report that holds up legally. Do it, Sarah said. Whatever it costs. There's more, Rita continued. I also looked into Brandon's real estate license. He's had 3 complaints filed against him in the past 2 years. Nothing major, but red flags. One client claimed he pressured them into a deal. Another said he was unusually pushy about getting access to their financial info. He was probably looking for marks, I said. People he could scam. That's my guess. Oh, and one more thing. He recently filed for bankruptcy protection. 2 months ago. Sarah's head snapped up. He what? Chapter 7 Bankruptcy. He didn't tell you? No, he never. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. Under bankruptcy law, Rita explained, he has to disclose all assets and debts to the court, including joint assets with his spouse. Sarah, you should have received paperwork about this. I never got anything. Then he probably listed a different address, which is illegal, by the way. You're supposed to notify your spouse when you file for bankruptcy. Sarah was shaking her head over and over. This keeps getting worse. How does it keep getting worse? I squeezed her shoulder. Rita, what's the timeline on the bankruptcy? Hearing scheduled for next month, but here's the thing. If Sarah files for divorce before that hearing, she can separate her assets from his. The bankruptcy won't touch her house, her bank accounts, anything that's solely in her name. But the HELOC has both their names, I said. Yeah, that's trickier. But with evidence of fraud, she can argue she's not responsible for debts incurred through identity theft. It'll take time, but she can fight it. After we hung up, Sarah sat very still for a long time. Then she opened a new browser tab and typed, "Divorce attorneys near me." Tom Wilson called that evening while Sarah was putting Emma and Lucas to bed via FaceTime. They were still at Brandon's sister's house, and Sarah was keeping up appearances until we had a plan. Maggie, we got a problem. What kind of problem? Brandon's not just in debt to regular loan sharks. He's into a group called the Riverside Crew. They're based out of Cincinnati, pretty serious operation. They specialize in targeting gamblers who've tapped out their legal options. How serious are we talking? The broken kneecaps are just the start kind of serious. They've been connected to at least 3 disappearances in the past 5 years. Nothing proven, but Jesus Christ. Yeah, and here's the kicker. Brandon owes them $65,000. The interest is 15% compounded monthly. He took out the initial loan 8 months ago for $30,000. It's ballooned. Why would he borrow from them if he knew they were dangerous? Because nobody else would lend to him. His credit's destroyed. The banks won't touch him. Even the online payday loan places flagged his account for suspicious activity. I rubbed my temples. How long does he have? They gave him until the end of next month. That's why he's been so desperate for cash. He's not trying to get rich, Maggie. He's trying not to get killed. After Tom hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen, thinking. Brandon was a liar, a thief, and a con artist. But he was also Emma and Lucas's father. And despite everything, I didn't want my grandchildren to grow up without a dad, even if that dad was Brandon Miller. Sarah came downstairs, found me sitting in the dark. Mom, you okay? Brandon's in over his head, I said. He owes money to some very bad people, dangerous people. Good. Sarah, I mean it. Good. Let them scare him. Let him feel afraid for once. Maybe then he'll understand what he's put us through. These people don't just scare. They hurt. Permanently. She was quiet. Then, are you saying we should help him? I'm saying we need to be smart. If something happens to Brandon, it could blow back on you. On the kids. We need to neutralize the threat completely. How? I'd been thinking about this for hours. A plan was forming. Risky, expensive, but possible. What if we bought his debt? Sarah stared at me. What? These loan shark operations, they're businesses. Illegal businesses, but businesses. They want their money. If we offer them a lump sum to purchase Brandon's debt, they might take it. Especially if we offer them less than what he owes, but still enough to make it worth their while. You want to become Brandon's loan shark? No, I want to become his creditor. There's a difference. If we own his debt, we control the terms. We can require him to attend Gamblers Anonymous, get a real job, pay us back slowly. We can keep him in line without cops, without courts, without the kids losing their father. Sarah processed this. How much would it cost? Probably $50,000, maybe $55,000. They'd take less than the $65,000 he owes because they get cash immediately. No risk, no violence. That's a lot of money, Mom. I have it. James's life insurance money, sitting in investments. He'd wanted me to use it for retirement, for traveling, for living well. But this was also living well. Protecting my daughter, protecting my grandchildren. I can't let you do that, Sarah said. You're not letting me do anything. I'm offering. And in return, Brandon pays me back at $500 a month for 13 years. I make a small profit. He learns a lesson. and everyone stays safe. What if he refuses? Then I turn over all this evidence to the police. He goes to prison for fraud and identity theft, and Emma and Lucas visit their daddy through plexiglass for the next 5 to 10 years. Sarah's eyes hardened. Let me make the offer. I want to see his face when he realizes he has no choice. Are you sure? Mom, you taught me that the best way to win a fight is to be smarter than the other person. You taught me to always have a plan B, and you taught me that sometimes mercy and strength are the same thing. She straightened her shoulders. Brandon's going to learn all of that, the hard way. I smiled. There was my daughter. Not the scared, crying woman who'd shown up 2 weeks ago. The strong, strategic woman I'd raised her to be. Okay, they said. Then let's finish building our case, because when we sit down with Brandon, we need to have every single piece of evidence locked down. No room for him to wiggle out. We worked until 2 a.m. By the time we finished, we had proof of the forged signature on the second mortgage, documentation of all gambling expenses, screenshots of his secret bank account, records of his bankruptcy filing, photos of his meetings with Jessica Reynolds, a list of every lie he'd told in the past 18 months. We had everything we needed to destroy him. The question was, would we use it to punish him or to save him? Sarah looked at the whiteboard, at the red web of crime spreading across it. Mom, she said quietly, do you think people can change? Really change? I thought about all the patients I'd seen over 40 years, the alcoholics who got sober, the addicts who got clean, the abusers who learned different ways to handle anger. But I also thought about the ones who didn't change, who promised they would, who swore they'd be different, and then went right back to their destructive patterns. Some can, I said, if they want to badly enough, if they hit rock bottom and decide they're done digging. Do you think Brandon will? I don't know, honey, but we're going to give him one chance to find out. Attorney Linda Hartwell's office smelled like old books and expensive leather. She was 62, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and reading glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. Sarah had found her through a referral from Rita, best elder law attorney in 3 states, Rita had said. She'll build you a fortress. That's exactly what we needed. Linda spread our documents across her conference table, moving through them with the precision of a surgeon. Every few minutes she'd make a note, highlight something, or tap a particular line with her pen. Well, she said after 20 minutes of silence, this is quite the shit show. Sarah let out a surprised laugh. Apparently she'd expected lawyers to be more formal. The good news, Linda continued, is that you have excellent documentation. The forged signature is obvious. Even I can see it, and I'm not a handwriting expert. The timeline of the gambling expenses tells a clear story, and the bankruptcy filing without spousal notification is a slam dunk for fraud. What's the bad news? I asked. The bad news is that untangling this is going to take time and money. Sarah, you're going to need to file police reports for identity theft. You'll need to dispute the fraudulent loan with the bank. You'll need to file for divorce and petition for full custody of the children. And you'll need to protect your assets before Brandon tries to liquidate everything to pay off his debts. How do we do that? Sarah asked. Linda pulled out a legal pad, started writing. First, we create an irrevocable trust for Maggie. She transfers all her assets into it, the house, her savings, everything. The beneficiaries are you and your children. Maggie becomes the trustee, managing the assets, but she's no longer the legal owner. Why would I want to not own my own stuff? I asked. Because if Brandon tries to sue you for any reason, claiming you're interfering with his marriage, whatever desperate crap he comes up with, there's nothing to take. You don't own anything. The trust does. That's genius, Sarah said. It's strategy, Linda corrected. Second, we need a power of attorney document from Sarah to you, Maggie. This gives you legal authority to freeze joint accounts, stop unauthorized transactions, and protect Sarah's assets while the divorce proceeds. She pulled out more forms. Third, we file for an emergency restraining order on Brandon's access to all joint financial accounts. With evidence of fraud, a judge will grant this immediately. How fast can we do all this? I asked. If you sign the papers today, I can have the trust established by end of week. The restraining order can be filed tomorrow morning. Power of attorney is effective as soon as Sarah signs and it's notarized. Linda looked at Sarah over her reading glasses. But honey, you need to understand something. Once we start this process, there's no going back. Brandon will know you're coming for him. He'll panic. And desperate people do unpredictable things. I know, Sarah said quietly. That's why we need to move fast. We signed papers for 3 hours. My hand cramped from writing my name so many times. But by the time we left Linda's office, I no longer owned my house. The trust did. Sarah had given me legal authority over her finances, and the restraining order paperwork was ready to file first thing in the morning. How do you feel? I asked Sarah as we walked to the car. Like I'm about to blow up my life. You're not blowing it up. You're protecting it. There's a difference. Is there? She stopped walking, turned to face me. Mom, what if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation for all of this? What if— Sarah, I took her hands. Listen to me. I've seen this before. Not exactly this, but versions of it. The spouse who insists their partner's story makes sense even when all the evidence says otherwise. You know what we called those people in the ICU? What? Enablers. And enablers don't help anyone get better. They just make it easier for the sick person to keep being sick. She nodded slowly. When do we confront him? As soon as the trust is finalized and the restraining order is in place. 3 days, maybe 4. We need all our pieces on the board before we make our move. And then what? Then we give him a choice. Get help and make this right, or face the consequences. I chose the Blue Ridge Diner again. Same booth as before. Neutral territory. Lots of witnesses. And this time, I was ready. The leather briefcase I'd bought specifically for this meeting sat on the seat beside me. Inside, 4 manila folders, each one a different nail in Brandon's coffin. And one more folder, the one that represented mercy. The choice. Brandon showed up 15 minutes late. He looked like hell. Unshaven, hair greasy, wearing the same shirt I'd seen him in 3 days ago on my surveillance footage. The man was unraveling. He slid into the booth without saying hello. Where's Sarah? Safe? What the hell does that mean? Where are my kids? Also safe. And before you think about calling the police, I should tell you that Sarah has filed for legal separation. You have no claim to see the children right now. His face went red. You can't keep me from my own family. I'm not keeping you from anyone. The court is. Sarah has a restraining order against you accessing any joint financial accounts. Would you like to guess why? I pushed the first folder across the table. Go ahead, I said. Open it. His hands shook as he flipped it open. Inside, the forensic handwriting analysis. The expert's report clearly stating that the signature on the second mortgage was forged. Photocopies of both signatures side by side, with arrows pointing to the differences. This is bullshit, he said, but his voice cracked. Is it? Because the expert is prepared to testify in court. And forgery is a felony, Brandon. Federal offense. You're looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. Don't. My voice was cold. Don't insult me by lying when we both know the truth. I pushed the second folder across. Go ahead. This one contained printouts of his bank statements. Every gambling transaction highlighted in yellow. Hundreds of them. Thousands of dollars. His secret Bank of America account with the depleted balance. Jesus Christ, he whispered. Third folder. This one had the photos. Brandon meeting with Jessica Reynolds. Brandon at the casino. Brandon at the ATM withdrawing cash. 47 different photos documenting his double life. You've been following me? That's illegal. No, it's not. You were in public spaces, and I hired a licensed private investigator. Everything here was obtained legally. I tapped the folder. Unlike the $85,000 you stole from your wife, Brandon put his head in his hands. You don't understand. I had no choice. There's always a choice. No, there isn't. He looked up, and I was startled to see tears, real ones. They're going to kill me, Maggie. The people I owe money to, they don't just break your legs and call it even. They make you disappear. The Riverside crew. His face went white. How do you— I know everything, Brandon. I know you owe them $65,000. I know the interest is compounding at 15% monthly. I know you took out the original loan 8 months ago and it spiraled out of control. Then you know I'm fucked. He laughed bitterly. I'm completely fucked. I can't pay them back. I've got nothing left. The bankruptcy won't even help because you can't discharge illegal debts. So yeah, I forged Sarah's signature. I stole from my own parents. I've done a lot of shitty things because I was trying not to die. You could have asked for help. From who? You? You barely tolerate me. Sarah? She'd leave me the second she found out how bad it was. My parents? I already destroyed them. I pulled out the fourth folder. This one's my favorite. Inside, a letter. Official letterhead from a debt collection agency. Except this wasn't a real collection agency. It was a shell company I'd had Linda set up for me. Legal, but essentially fictitious. The letter stated that the debt of Brandon Miller, originally owed to the Riverside crew, had been purchased by Thompson Asset Recovery, LLC, for the sum of $50,000. Brandon read it 3 times. What is this? I bought your debt. You what? 3 days ago, I had my attorney contact the Riverside crew through intermediaries. I offered them $50,000 cash for your $65,000 debt. They took it. Why wouldn't they? They got their money immediately. No risk, no trouble. And now I'm your creditor. Brandon stared at me. Why would you do that? Because despite everything you've done, you're still the father of my grandchildren. And I don't want Emma and Lucas growing up without a dad. Even if that dad is you. He started crying then. Really crying. Big, ugly sobs that made the other diner patrons turn and stare. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no satisfaction. Just cold, calculated purpose. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out the 5th folder. This is a contract. You're going to sign it. The terms are simple. 1. You sign divorce papers. Sarah gets full custody of Emma and Lucas. You get supervised visitation on weekends, assuming you follow the other terms. 2. You attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times per week for a minimum of 2 years. I will verify attendance. Miss 3 meetings in a row, and the deal is off. 3. You get a real job, not real estate, somewhere you don't have access to other people's money. Home Depot is hiring. So is Target. I don't care which one, but you're going to work 40 hours a week. 4. You pay me $500 per month for the next 13 years. That's $65,000 total, the full amount you owed plus interest. Miss even one payment, and I call the police about the forgery. 5. You never ever contact Sarah about money again. Not for loans, not for help, not for anything. All your communication about the kids goes through a co-parenting app that I will monitor. Or, I leaned forward, you can refuse, and I'll turn all this evidence over to the police right now. You'll go to prison. Sarah divorces you anyway. And Emma and Lucas grow up wondering why Daddy's wearing an orange jumpsuit. Brandon wiped his face with his sleeve. How do I know you won't turn me in anyway? You don't. You're going to have to trust me. And trust isn't something you're good at, I know. But I keep my word, Brandon. Always. That's the difference between you and me. He picked up the pen with shaking hands. If I sign this, I'm a slave to you for 13 years. No, if you sign this, you're alive and employed and still in your children's lives. You're not a slave. You're a man paying back his debts like an adult. He signed. Every page, every line. His signature looked nothing like the forgery on Sarah's mortgage. His real signature was messy, childish almost. When he finished, I pulled the contract back, slipped it into my briefcase. One more thing, I said. You're going to write Sarah a letter, a real one, admitting everything. Apologizing, not asking for forgiveness. You don't get to ask for that. Just telling her the truth. You'll give it to me by the end of the week. And if I do all this, if I follow every rule, what then? Then maybe in a few years you'll be someone your kids can be proud of. Maybe you'll be someone you can be proud of. But that's up to you. I stood up, left money for my coffee. The debt recovery company will contact you next week with payment details. Don't be late with the first payment, Brandon. I'm giving you one chance. Don't waste it. I walked out of the diner, got in my car, drove 3 miles down the road before I had to pull over because my hands were shaking too hard to drive. I'd just gambled $50,000 on the possibility that a gambling addict could change. God help me. I hoped I was right. 6 months later, I was teaching Emma how to plant tomatoes. You have to be gentle with the roots, sweetie, I said, guiding her small hands around the seedling. Too rough and you'll hurt them. Too loose and they won't grow strong. Like people? Emma asked. She was 7 now, smart as a whip, and had started asking philosophical questions that made me feel like I was talking to a tiny therapist. Yeah, baby, like people. Sarah came out onto the porch with lemonade. She looked better, healthier. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. She'd started going to therapy twice a week, processing everything that had happened. The divorce was finalized. She'd moved into a small house 10 minutes from my place, bought with money from the sale of her old house once the fraudulent mortgage was cleared. "Mom, Brandon's check came today," she said, holding up an envelope. "On time?" "On time. That's 6 months in a row." 6 months. Brandon had been working at Home Depot in the lumber department. He'd been to Gamblers Anonymous 97 times. I knew because the sponsor sent me weekly confirmation emails per our agreement. He'd seen Emma and Lucas every Saturday afternoon at a supervised visitation center. No missed appointments. I wasn't naive enough to think he was cured. Addiction doesn't work like that. But he was trying. Really, genuinely trying. "Did he include a letter?" I asked. Sarah nodded, pulling out a piece of paper. "He's writing to the kids now, telling them about his week. Last time he wrote about how he's learning to build birdhouses in his free time. Emma thought that was cool." "And how do you feel about it?" She sat down on the porch steps, watching Emma dig in the dirt. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to believe he's changed. Part of me thinks he's just playing a long con. And part of me doesn't care either way as long as my kids are safe. All of those feelings can be true at once." "I know." She took a sip of lemonade. "His sister called me yesterday. Said Brandon cried after his last visit with the kids. Said Emma told him she loved him, and he completely broke down." "How does that make you feel?" "Confused, angry, sad, all of it." She looked at me. "Is it wrong that I don't want to forgive him? Everyone keeps saying I should be happy he's getting better, but I'm not. I'm just tired." "You don't have to forgive him, Sarah. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. You can acknowledge that he's making progress and still be angry about what he did. Those aren't mutually exclusive." "Really?" "Really. Forgiveness is for you, not him. If you get to a place where forgiving him gives you peace, great. If you never get there, that's okay too. What matters is that you and the kids are safe and healing." Lucas ran up then, covered in dirt, holding a worm. "Grandma, look what I found." "That's a beautiful worm, buddy." "Can I keep him?" "Worms need to live in the dirt, sweetheart. But you can visit him every time you come to Grandma's house." He carefully placed the worm back in the garden, patting the soil over it like he was tucking it in for bed. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. "It's from Brandon." "What does it say?" She read aloud. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm being promoted to department supervisor. 40 hours a week, plus benefits. I'll be able to increase my payments to Maggie to $700 a month instead of $500. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know." We sat in silence for a moment. "He's trying," Sarah said quietly. "He is. Does that mean anything?" "It means he's trying, that's all. What you do with that information is up to you." 1 year later, Thanksgiving at my place had become a tradition. The table I'd built from reclaimed wood, well, that James had built, but I like to claim partial credit, was covered with food. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, 3 kinds of pie. Emma and Lucas had helped me bake the pumpkin pie, which looked lopsided but tasted perfect. Sarah was there, of course, looking stronger every day. She'd started dating someone, a teacher from her school, a gentleman named David who made her laugh and didn't have a gambling problem. Robert and Patricia Miller sat at one end of the table. They'd gotten jobs at the local Walmart and were renting a small apartment in town. They'd apologized to me 17 times in the past year. I'd accepted once and told them to move forward, not backward. Brandon was not invited. The agreement was clear. Supervised visits only, no family gatherings until he'd been clean from gambling for 2 full years. We still had 6 months to go, but there was an empty chair at the table. I'd set a place for it with a card that read, "For those still finding their way back." "Grandma, why is there an empty seat?" Lucas asked, climbing into my lap. "Because some people need more time to heal, buddy, and we leave the door open for them, not because they deserve it, but because we choose mercy." "What's mercy?" Sarah answered before I could. "It means you give someone a chance even when they don't deserve one, because sometimes people surprise you, like when you let me have ice cream even though I didn't finish my vegetables." I laughed. "Something like that." After dinner, Sarah helped me wash dishes while David entertained the kids with card tricks in the living room. "Mom," Sarah said quietly, hands deep in sudsy water. I wanted to say thank you for everything. You've already thanked me. No, I mean, for teaching me that I could be strong, for showing me that protecting yourself isn't selfish, her voice cracked slightly, for saving me when I couldn't save myself. I put down the dish towel and pulled her into a hug. Sarah, you saved yourself. I just gave you the tools. I don't know about that. I do. You made the hard choices. You filed the reports, you signed the papers, you protected your kids. I just provided backup. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Do you think he'll make it? Brandon? Do you think he'll actually change? I looked out the window. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting everything gold and purple. Somewhere out there, Brandon was spending Thanksgiving with his GA sponsor, probably in some church basement eating reheated casserole and trying to stay sober through the holiday. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know this. We gave him a chance. What he does with it is up to him. Our job, yours and mine, is to keep moving forward, to heal, to build a life worth living. And if he doesn't make it, then we'll still be okay, because we already are okay. We're more than okay. Look at what you've built, Sarah. You're raising 2 incredible kids. You're in a healthy relationship. You've got a job you love. You survived betrayal and came out stronger. She smiled through tears. When did you get so wise? 68 years, honey. 68 years of watching people make choices and dealing with consequences. You learn things. Later, after everyone left, I sat on my porch in the dark. The mountains were invisible now, but I knew they were there. Solid, unchanging, dependable. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Brandon. I know I'm not supposed to contact Sarah, so I'm texting you. I just wanted to say thank you for Thanksgiving, for the empty chair, for believing I could be better even when I didn't believe it myself. I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. That's all I've got. But I'm trying. I typed back. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Then I deleted the text thread, per our agreement. No contact meant no contact. I looked up at the stars, thousands of them, visible now that I was away from city lights. James used to say that stars were proof that beautiful things can exist in darkness. I'd built this life, this sanctuary, this fortress, not to hide from the world, but to protect what mattered. Family, love, peace. And maybe, just maybe, to prove that wisdom and mercy aren't weaknesses. They're the strongest things there are.